A very good afternoon to all of you. Uh, I'm not very sure what I would speak to you about because I have not been present here, but I believe number of potential investors in education and venture capitalists, equity investors are here. As you know, the education sector is a kind of a growing field in India now, and that is fueled more by our demographic advantage, where we have a very large percentage of young people. It is much higher percentage than even in China, which is another populous country. And of course, in many developed Western countries, the population is aging, whereas we have a large working population. So, education will remain very, very relevant to us for quite some time to come. And in the 11th five-year plan, 19% of the total plan size is devoted to education, whereas it was only 7% in the 10th five-year plan. So that shows the importance that is given to education. But at the same time, this is still not adequate, not only not adequate, but it is nowhere near what we require. For example, the right to free and compulsory education for the children between 6 to 14 years age has now become law from 1st April. For this, we require an additional 1,71,000 crores for the next 5 years. So we have to find this money. Similarly, for the secondary education sector, we had projected that we would be requiring more than 1 lakh crores in 5 years, whereas we have allocated only 53,000 crores. So there is a huge gap here. Similar is the case with higher education. And in higher education, our enrollment ratio is only 12.4%, which means in the age group of 18 to 24, out of 100 people, only 12 were in college. Whereas any developed country, you would see that this is not less than 40%, and in many cases it is more than 60%. China has got now 23% as the GER. So our minister has fixed a kind of a target that we should raise it to at least 20% by 2020. And it has to go much beyond 30%, so that it becomes kind of a economy where knowledge-based economy. So though we feel proud that our IT sector is very good in India, but because India is a very big country, there is a sizable number working in IT. But if you look at the entire population of the country, this is not adequate. And we need many more knowledge workers. And this will be possible if we invest in education. And it is not possible for government alone to make all this investment. So there will be a gap, and we hope that there will be a kind of collaboration between the public sector and the private sector to make this happen. Actually, it is happening in one way. There are many private educational institutions in the higher education sector. It started with engineering and medical colleges in some southern states, but it has now spread everywhere in the country. So the private sector has chipped in and provided and tried to fill in some gap. But how it can be done systematically in an orderly manner without compromising quality, that is the key issue. And we are trying to bring out some models of public-private partnership which would make it possible for the private sector to chip in while ensuring that the overall objective of the country is achieved. I would give one example. This is we are going to roll out a scheme called Model School, under which every block in the country, we have 6,000 blocks in the country, and each block in the country will have one high quality school which will be a school of excellence, and this school hopefully will be a model for all other schools to follow in future. And we may need an investment of about 5 to 10 crores in each school, and we may have about 1,500 to 2,000 children in each of these schools. So what we have envisaged is that out of these 6,000 blocks, in about 40%, that is 2,500 blocks, will involve private sector. So these schools will be set up by the private sector organizations. They will invest in capital expenditure. They will also run the school. They will have full autonomy in running the school. But government will sponsor meritorious and economically weaker students to study in this school, and per capita basis the cost will be reimbursed by the government. In this model, what happens is it is a win-win situation for both government and the private sector. The government doesn't have so much money to invest in creating so many schools, because at one time they will not be able to invest so much in capital expenditure. So this is a way of having a much larger number of schools than what the government can afford at present. For the private sector, it becomes a kind of investment opportunity where they also get assured number of students, and this will be a school where private sector also will be allowed to take students on their own, besides the students who will be sponsored by government, and those students assurance that per capita cost will be met. And so the initial risk of whether the school will succeed or not to some extent is reduced. At the same time, the private sector also has the incentive to improve quality in the school so that it will attract more children from outside, and the school can prosper. As you know, the only thing that one has to look at here is that in India, as per a Supreme Court judgment, education cannot be commercialized. The education, so the whatever it cannot be run by a kind of organization to make profit out of the educational enterprise. But even without making profit, if it runs well, and actually profit is not, it is not that the educational institution cannot make any surplus, but that surplus needs to be reinvested in the educational institution. It should not be taken away. That is the law of the land as per the Unnikrishnan judgment of the Supreme Court. So under PPP, if this kind of a structure is created, then the private sector can expand, private sector can fund the capital expenditure, whereas the recurring cost for students who are sponsored is provided for by the government. So, but there will be a MOU about the quality standards, and as long as that is maintained, government also doesn't have the botheration of running the school or managing the employees. So the only thing that government does is a kind of regulatory framework to ensure quality. So this is the structure that we are putting up for the model school. Similarly, for polytechnics, there would be 1,000 new polytechnics in the entire country, and these polytechnics also will be set up under a PPP mode. So there will be a kind of three partners: central government, state government, and a private sector. And private sector will have the autonomy to run these institutions. The other thing that private sector can do to make it more promising is that these schools or the polytechnics outside the teaching hours, these can also be used as skill development centers for the local youth around the area. So that will generate extra income. So the infrastructure can be used to the optimum extent by the private sector, which may not be possible within a government setup. So because the government setup has a lot of rigidity, whereas the private sector will have a lot of flexibility in this. So these are some of the models. There are many different models of PPP. It is also possible that private sector can be engaged to take up some certain functional activity. For example, the school transportation or the college transportation. This can be provided by private sector. And actually we have such a need for skill development in the entire country. As many of you would know, that only 5% of our population in the working age group have some formal skill which they have learned through a kind of formal system. Whereas this percentage is as high as 90% in Korea, and in many places it would be more than 60% of the people will have some formal skill, which in India it is basically they learn on the job, but they haven't got any formal, they have not been imparted any formal skill. So the Prime Minister has announced that at least 500 million people should be imparted skill by 2022. So this is a very huge task, and this cannot be done by government alone. This has to be, actually the major part of this will have to be done by the private sector, and there is a huge opportunity for investment, and particularly with use of ICT, this will be much more possible for the private sector to handle. And they can have a chain of institutions throughout the country which could be connected using ICT, and they can have kind of uniform curriculum and transaction methods. So this is, I think the sky is the limit as far as the skill development and educational opportunities for private investment is concerned. And I think the 11th plan will end in 2012. I think this will be further intensified in the next 5-year plan. And we also simultaneously, as I have mentioned, that hopefully because of the Right to Education Act, will improve our literacy rates to a large extent in the next few years. Because the idea is that nobody between the age group of 6 to 14 will be outside school. And then we are going to universalize secondary education. Our now aim is that by 2017 we should achieve kind of universalization of secondary education up to class 10, so that everybody enrolls up to the secondary stage, and universal retention up to the secondary stage by 2020. And thereafter we move it further to age of 18, because now in this knowledge economy, it's not enough to have a primary education or a upper primary education. We have to have at least 10 years of education, if not 12 years of education. And of course, to improve our higher education enrollment ratio, that again, as I mentioned, that to be a kind of developed economy, we must cross that threshold of 30% of GER, gross enrollment ratio, in the 18 to 24 age group. And there will be again a massive opportunity for investment in education. And as you know, the cabinet has already approved the foreign education providers bill, which is likely to be introduced. So Once that happens, then many private investors can also